My name is Michael Rosen for the Television Academy's Archive of American Television. We're in New York City, New York, and it's my great pleasure to interview Eartha Kitt. So the first question I want to ask you is, when was the first time you saw television?
I think it was when I did my first television show in Paris when I just started. It was a very, very strange feeling. It gave me the feeling of the first time that I ever saw a movie. When they took me out of the cotton fields of South Carolina and brought me up to New York, and I went to the movies for the first time. I was so scared that I ran back to where we lived, 143rd Street in 8th Avenue, and I ran into my room that we were renting from the people. And I went under the bed and didn't come out until somebody came looking for me. That's how scared I was. As a matter of fact, I'm still afraid of television because I don't understand how it works. To me, it's all magic. I'm living in Alice in Wonderland.
No one's ever said that as a response before. You're the first. What scares you about it?
The fact that you can press a button and a film, your face, your image, comes through the air out of nowhere, and it's on a box in your room, wherever that box may be, and it's talking to you. Whether you want to hear that conversation or not, don't join in. That to me is magic. It's like when I first came to New York and saw electricity for the first time. I saw electricity down south, but it was in Orangeburg when we went shopping on Saturday in the wagon, and there were electric lights on the streets. But when you actually are able to press a button and magic happens, I still feel that way about it. How do you explain that? Even though you may understand that there are atoms in the air that carries energy, and somebody's been able to plug into that and put it all into one little thing like a bulb, and there's your magic. You can understand it in that manner in which it's explained scientifically. But emotionally, to me, it's still like being a child. I never will be able to understand that. But it's nice having it.
Well, that seems like that sense of being in awe of things that you don't understand. Sometimes it may be a good way to go through life.
Well, I think that's why I've survived this long. Particularly in show business when everything is to me magical. And I love the fact that my creators, whomever they may be, or fate, whatever, has put me in a place where I have been able to be almost like a child and still feel that I'm somewhat of an adult. But the magic has never left me, and I hope it never does.
Do you remember the first shows that you remember seeing television that really made an impact on you?
When I first came back to America from Europe on December of 1951, and one of my boyfriends bought me a television set, and I was not into television that much at the time, but I was always very interested in Sunday programs because those are the days that I had free. We were off on Sundays, so we didn't work on Sundays. And I would spend my whole day watching television, which was the Colgate Hour, Play of the Week, Omnibus. Who was called the father of television?
General Sarnoff?
No. I'm looking at his face. He's such a wonderful guy, and I love this man. The father of television. He used to be so funny.
Milton Berle.
Milton Berle, yes. His shows were so fantastic. The show of shows was so... because they were honestly funny. They came out of the profound ism of your own existence and your own experiences. And television was live in those days. So whatever happened, you had to go along with it, either to make up for it in a comedy way, or if it was drama, it was not a matter of being able to cut and start all over again. That was it. So you had to know your lines extremely well, know what you were doing extremely well, and therefore it was very, very well disciplined, except for the comedy things. I remember doing a show with Perry Como. God forgive me for laughing. He was so funny. And I don't think that he even realized how funny he was. Because he was the lazy man. And I think we did I don't remember what song I did with him, but we were sitting on the side as though we were fishing in a pond. And he was so hysterically funny because he never had an expression. He never said anything. He never moved. It was just like, da, 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 whatever he was singing, and whatever I had to say. I was laughing so hard within myself that I never knew when to say whatever it was I was supposed to say. But he was a lot of fun because we had to be on tenterhooks all the time because that's the way the business was at the time. And the funnier you were because of the mistakes that were made, that's what made Milton Berle so funny. Because he took things that were happening to him au naturel, and if something went wrong, then au naturally he had this quickness of mind that he could make it funny. And it was wonderful for the audience. It's a pity, I think, that it doesn't happen that way anymore in very many ways. It's gotten too technical now. It's too planned, Nobody wants to make a mistake. We're afraid of losing face. But it's the losing of the face that makes you think fast on your feet. You don't have to think that fast anymore.
So early on, were you attracted more to drama or comedy, do you think?
I loved both. Because when I was living in England and in France, learning my craft, because that's where I started on my own as Eartha Kitt and became Eartha Kitt in Europe. I used to go to the Old Vic Theatre with my books on Shakespeare and listen to Sir Laurence Olivier do Hamlet on one day, and Sir John Gielgud would do Hamlet on another day. And then I saw the film that he was making, Sir Laurence Olivier made of Hamlet, and I would follow the book, and and then I realized that Sir Laurence Olivier twisted the chapters around, and I couldn't follow it as thoroughly as I would like to have. But it was fun. It was wonderful fun because I was learning my craft from live people, not from the machines, where you press a button and you can become a big singing star, and your voice can be not so very good, and that machine can make you sound as though you're Pavarotti or somebody like that. But it was fun learning my craft from people like Sir Laurence Olivier, John Gielgud, and live people like Helen Hayes. I always spent my time learning as much as I could from live performances like that. So my stage experiences started, of course, with the Katherine Dunham Ballet Company, because I started out, as you know, as a ballet dancer. And actually it started at the New York School of Performing Arts, because my teacher, I remember her extremely well, Mrs. Mearson, whom I was given to from Mrs. Bishop of PS 136 in Harlem, who made me learn a poem. And I had no idea why, but I didn't talk. Because of that rejection, I didn't talk. Everybody thought I was a dummy. I didn't want to attract attention to myself. So in order to bring me out, so to speak, they gave me this poem to learn to get into the New York School of Performing Arts in the drama department. And Mrs. Mearson gave me a matinee ticket, and the first Broadway show that I saw was Cyrano de Bergerac with Jose Ferrer. And I was so in love with the theater feeling that you got from the people, because that was immediate gratification. That was an immediate feeling that you had that nobody could duplicate. And you were the one that was pulling it. And the audience was taking it and they were giving it back. And there's nothing in the world to explain that. And that's why, to me today, television is wonderful. I don't mind doing it. And I don't mind doing films. But there's nothing in the world like a live performance, because the audience tells you the truth. You know by the applause whether they really are applauding you because of your ability, or whether they are appreciating you from 100 years ago for what you did, or whether they're appreciating you now. That's the moment of truth. Television doesn't give that to me.
In the late 40s, early 50s, many people in theater looked down to television, thought it was a fad, didn't think it would last. What was your perspective on it?
I didn't think about it, actually. I think I was too poor to, to think about whether I prefer to do live theater or television. I was only interested in making a living. And whether it was television or live performances, whatever I got paid for doing, then I was very grateful for that. But through the time of my years and aging and so forth and so on, experience, I do appreciate live performances much better, much more.
If you could describe your early impressions of a television studio, let's say not without an audience and just maybe let's say a drama or something. If someone has never walked on a stage in those early days, how would you describe it?
Well, for instance, when I was doing Salome, I think that was for Omnibus. Empty stage. You only have the setting and the other actors. If you have wonderful actors that are givers, not selfish actors, it's a wonderful feeling because you're giving and taking from each other. Then when the audience comes in, it seems to illuminate that feeling that much more because now all of us, those of us who are the main characters particularly, are getting that electrifying feeling from the public and we're all being stimulated. Whereby on an empty stage, then I always work to the cameraman or to the stagehand or to the lighting people, whomever is in back of the set or in vis where I can see them. But like I say, the characters all now become one unit from the electric feeling of the audience. It makes it very exciting, particularly if you're a giving actor. And I'm very lucky to have had that in my life. Very few people have come into my life on stage that were not givers. But if it starts with you, it's very difficult for the other person not to give back because the audience sees and feels that.
But before, let's say, you would go on the air with the idea that maybe 1 million people would see you instantly, as the clock was ticking down, was there a sense with you and the other actors and the crew were about to go live? Describe that feeling before you went live.
Oh, it's very exciting, but it's also well, for me, it's very fearful too because I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death of being rejected, of course, and that rejection always comes through. If you can control it and use it as a force constructively, then it's fine. But if it gets to a point where your voice is trembling and your knees are going in the wrong direction and your stomach is having butterflies, it takes a little while to get acquainted to the fact that the audience is there to help you do what it is that you are to do. And when you have a wonderful audience such as that are givers also, then the fear subsides to a great extent and you get the control. But it's a frightening business to be in when you are in front of a live audience. But you see, that fear, that constructive kind of fear, to me does not come through without an audience. Unless I'm working to the gentleman in back of the camera, and if that cameraman realizes that I'm searching for that electric feeling from him or her, they usually help you, even though they're supposed to be looking through the camera lens, but they do help. Because there's nothing in the world like direct communication with those whom you are responsible to communicate to. When the audience is accepting you, then you can get under control. Never completely, though, I feel. Because once you get too cocky and too under control, you may lose it. So I always like to feel that little nervous tension inside my stomach.
That's important.
I
Keep
think
you on
so.
edge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay on edge. I had a wonderful conversation with Ethel Merman one time, and I was a nervous wreck standing on the side. She said, "I don't know what we were doing, but maybe it's one of these benefits or the other." And she saw that I was very, very nervous, and she said, "Eartha, what are you nervous about? I've never been nervous in my life. I know what I'm doing. When I get out there, I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's it. Don't be scared." Whatever her words were. But I couldn't understand how, and she was wonderful, that staunch strength she had. You cannot define that. Because she had the confidence of people like Cole Porter who were writing her songs, and she was singing Cole Porter or whomever she was singing, and she knew there's a line between me and the audience, and therefore I know what I'm doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know if I ever really want to know what I'm doing. Not really. I know my words, I think, to a great extent. I know what songs I'm going to sing. But you never know when that audience is going to make you feel as though that note was not quite kosher. Or something is quite not there when they know. And there's nothing to do, there's nothing to explain, there's nothing to say like, I heard one comedian, and I liked him very much as a comedian until he made that one statement. The audience was not accepting him, and he was supposed to be very funny. But it was an American comedian who went to England, and the English did not understand his sense of humor. And he made this tremendous statement. He said, "I don't care what you all think, but I'm going to stay out here until I get you." Well, as far as I was concerned, that was the end of him, and as far as the audience was concerned, that was the end of him. So whether you say those words, or you feel those words, or you act those words, or you think those words, the audience knows. And you always have to give the audience the benefit of the doubt as far as I'm concerned. Because when you least suspect, that's when they sense something that they know was not quite kosher. So you have to keep going and hope that you get them back somewhere along the line without pushing too hard.
Yeah, and don't you think assume that they're seeing it for the first time? They should get that what's happening on stage has a sense of spontaneity and that it's capturing a moment in time.
Yes.
I mean, is that what you're saying is one of the reasons that you don't that you're always a little on edge and you don't necessarily know your words? Is it to allow yourself to be in the moment?
Yes. No matter how well you know the words. Well, I can only talk for myself. I can't speak for others.
Right.
No matter how well I know those words, you're always afraid you're going to forget them. So somewhere along the line, you might make a mistake, and even though you cover it up, the audience will still feel that something was a little out of place there. But as long as you make it up somewhere along the line, unless you just stop and say, "I'm sorry, I forgot my lyrics." And they like that too, because that's spontaneity, and that's a moment that they will never forget because you went along with the program.
And being honest.
And being honest, that's right.
Yeah.
But you can't always do that if you're doing a play.
Right.
Particularly if it's a dramatic play. If it's a dramatic play, don't fool with it. Just keep going as best you can.
You mentioned omnibus earlier. Could you talk about that and what led up to that role?
Well, as I said, on Sundays I used to lock myself in my house on East 92nd Street. And that was my day to see what was going on in the world, like meet the press, etc., and also what was happening in theater. And these programs had that kind of thing. It was, I think Omnibus was 2 hours, and 1 hour would be of a play. And I said, this is a very prestigious show. I want to be on it. And I think I was doing either Mrs. Patterson or whatever show I was doing at the time. And I called the agent and said, I would like to do something on this particular program. And I want to do Salome. Now, they thought I was crazy. First of all, the agent said to me, I remember him, but I won't say his name, just in case he's still alive. said, Eartha, don't you know what color you are? I thought that was very funny, and I didn't know whether I should laugh or cry. So then I told him that I would like to do Salome, and I named my cast and like to play with Leo Ginn and Patricia Neal and so forth and so on. And when he hung up the phone, he says, well, I see what I can do. Well, 10 days pass, 2 weeks pass, blah, blah, blah passes, and nothing happens. And I keep calling, and they said, whatever excuse they gave me. Anyway, I thought they were very funny. These people who are taking 10% of your earnings, but they don't want to bother about placing you where you want to be because it may be a little bit too difficult for them, and they have a rostrum of I don't know how many other artists, and they don't want to get in bad with that particular group of people, such as Omnibus or producers of any particular show, because they have other artists to contend with.
Well, his comment, though, if you can put that in perspective during that time, because anyone watching this, it's going to be a different world. So if you can put that comment in perspective for us.
Well, he said, don't you know what color you are? Because Salome is not supposed to be a brown-skinned person. And to me, everybody was brown-skinned at the time because it's where the reality of the Bible began. It's in the Middle East, somewhere like that. Jerusalem and all of this. So, and the Arabs and the Hebrews and all of this, they were all brown-skinned people as far as I was concerned. So and Herod particularly. And therefore, I went around them, and I told them what I was going to do.
Well, but also I want to hear from you in regards to the industry of television,
Mm-hmm.
as far as people of color appearing on television,
Mm-hmm.
how rare it was, some of the barriers that were broken, perhaps by Nat King Cole or something like that. If you can explain that in your words around that time, what was going on.
Nat King Cole's show was a wonderful show, but behind the scenes, the people were so prejudiced that they said I wouldn't sponsor him if I was selling lipstick, because brown skin and Anglo-Saxon skin tones were not supposed to be camaraderie. You had your world, and brown people had their world, and never the twain shall meet. But when someone like myself comes along who is neither black nor white, or have been accepted either by the blacks or by the whites, because you're somewhere in between, it makes it that much more difficult for them to accept. Because then now they're saying, well, she's not black and she's not white, so what do we do with her? We don't know how to place her. And besides, she doesn't sound like a brown-skinned person, because they wanted me to be from one of the islands. And I said, no, I'm a cotton picker from South Carolina. I could have come back to America speaking without, je suis comme ça et tout ça, il ne faut pas parler en français or en anglais or tout ça. But I am my natural self. And if you're truthful to yourself, you will always be honest, because then you're not faking your way through life. You're going as an honest person, and that's something that was very difficult to be accepted, I think, in those days. But with Nat King Cole, I flew in from Las Vegas after Nat King Cole and I did St. Louis Blues together, and he was one of the first blacks to have a television show, and we all did it for nothing because we wanted to launch him as a television personality. But the sponsors were the ones that said, no, I will not sponsor a black person in a black show. As a matter of fact, I was going with Charlie Rebson of Revlon, and Charlie came to me in my house in Beverly Hills, and he said, Eartha, I'm going to start this television series, and it's going to be of big Hollywood stars. And he came to Hollywood looking for Hollywood personalities. And when he came to my house, he sat in the pool and he said, do you know that 6 out of 10 American artists can hold the audience in the palm of their hands? And he said, they happen to all be black. He said, I can't do that. I said, Charlie, you're a big businessman. You tell people what the truth of the matter is in this country. You dictate to them what kind of lipstick they should buy, what kind of powder they should wear, blah, 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 blah. So if you really were on the ism of being a real American, so to speak, and these were not really my words, but in essence they were, you would get a brown-skinned person to open your television show as a series. I said, you can't get me, and maybe not Lena Horne, But why not Lena Horne? But he wanted a man. So I recommended Harry Belafonte. As I said, Harry Belafonte is very handsome, he's very intelligent. He represents dignity. He hired Belafonte for 2 shows. I don't even know if Harry knows this story, because it was all behind the scenes. I never said anything to him about this. And he's hired him for 2 shows, so Rebson told me. And he called me about 5 or 10 minutes after the show started. And he said, Eartha, I will never hire a black person again as long as I live. Because Harry's first song was a chain gang song, which to the business people was a slap in the face. And if I had been in that position, I would have come out and sing Sissy Bon or Matilda, and go on and do your cute thing, because you're already there. You don't have to preach about it. You don't have to say anything about it. You're there. And then you let things happen without ever mentioning the fact that I'm the first black person or I'm the first green person who did this and that and the other thing. The audience knows. Public is not stupid. And those are the kind of things that were happening in those days. And there were people who didn't want to hire people like myself or Lena Horne or Dorothy Dandridge, because we were either considered too beautiful, too sexy, too whatever, not supposed to be seen as a sex symbol in the living room or the bedroom of the general American people. So we were very difficult to place. And as you know, it was Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, and myself who were up for the part of Porgy and Bess and Carmen Jones. Well, after those 3 films that Dorothy Dandridge did, what else are you going to do? You get farmed out to foreign countries, and you play sarong girls on an island somewhere. And that's why I'm very fortunate to be in the theater, rather than depending on Hollywood, particularly at that time, or television at that time. Then they had shows like Amos and Andy, which I think one of our people bought up in order to get rid of it because they thought it was scandalous for the black people. But that was great sense of humor. And you see, the black people did not object to it as long as the white man was in blackface. And they heard it on the radio. And they sounded as though they were black people. And they were being on the air as black people. The moment they put on television, real black people, everybody was up in arms. They didn't want to see black people like that. But Raman, it was funny. And it was not funny in a to me, it was not funny in a derogatory way. It was like what's her name, Molly Goldberg. She was wonderful, marvelously successful television series. And the profound humor that came out of her, and the profound humor that came out of Amos and Andy, to me, was a part of our culture.
It transcended it.
That's right. And when somebody came along and stopped it, like the NAACP, you don't see that humor anymore. It's all now very slapstick, not funny.
I'll stop you right there.